All right, as people are joining us, welcome everyone this evening to the Psychoeducational Importance of Scheduling. We have Eric Elliott, who's here joining us this evening, along with Lonnie Hessen. I am going to give it just a few minutes here as I see that people are joining, and then we will, I'll kick us off. I'm going to also pull up a poll for those of you who are there, who are online with us on Zoom. If you could just complete that, we would greatly appreciate it. And we have also gone live on Facebook. So with that, I'm going to kick us off. I'm Lisa Valerio, and I am the founder of the Phoenicia Foundation. Eric and Lonnie are both board members, and Lonnie is the co-founder of the Phoenicia Foundation. We're an organization that provides services to families and children and professionals with that are focusing on providing services for those with special needs. We started 4 years ago, and we do obviously now online outreach through webinars and training. We do in person, and then we also have had the opportunity to be able to go to the Philippines and do online, not online, we've been able to do in-person outreach, doing assessments and trainings with locals in the Philippines. And we have done an entire series since COVID has started, and I'm super excited that we have Eric here with us this evening to talk about the importance of scheduling. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lonnie to introduce Eric, and then we will have Eric start the presentation.
Thanks, Lisa. We're so happy to have you all here. Thank you for joining. And as Lisa mentioned, we have our board member and colleague, Eric Elliott, who is a licensed educational psychologist, joining us this evening to give this wonderful presentation. And if you're wondering what a licensed educational psychologist is, educational psychologists use the tools of assessment, collaboration, and consultation to help teams to develop the best possible plans to maximize skill development for students with disabilities. So that is what Eric has been doing here in San Francisco for the past 22 years. He's worked with all ages, from young preschoolers all the way through 21 years old, but his specialty is working with teens, adolescents in a high school setting. So with that, I will hand the reins over to Eric. We're so excited for your presentation, and thanks for doing it.
All right. Thank you, Lonnie. So happy to be here. I am so grateful to be part of the Phoenicia Foundation. I would like to start actually with a gratitude affirmation, because in these tough times, it is very, very easy to forget about the things that we should be grateful for. So if you'll just bear with me, I'd like to read this to everybody. Happiness cannot be traveled to, owned, earned, worn, or consumed. Happiness is the spiritual experience of living every minute with love, grace, and gratitude. So with that, let's move forward, and we'll talk about scheduling. So for those of you who joined, I'm assuming I have a lot of teachers in the audience. Teachers are incredibly good schedulers. They have to schedule children to do things all day, every day. But wanted to talk about scheduling because of COVID-19 and coronavirus. We are in a situation where parents are more and more involved in their children's education and day to day, especially with school-age children, scheduling. And so I really wanted to do this presentation to talk about why is scheduling so important. And we'll get into some of the elements of scheduling as well. But let's just start with this. Why is scheduling so important? both children and adults feel a much greater sense of security with a daily and weekly routine and schedule. There is nothing better for a child and their peace of mind than to know what to expect and have that expectation met. And schedules are super good at providing that. Schedules are, I think, the foundation that supports remote learning and telehealth delivery. And for those of you who work with children that have autism and developmental delays, you know that a robust schedule will provide so many more opportunities to see increased skill development through those repetitive scheduling routines. There's COVID, and here's some of our teachers and some of our providers, especially now in this time of change, stress, and anxiety related to COVID and coronavirus. Our children really, and students really need a lot of consistency. It is definitely in their best interest to try and provide as consistent and robust schedule as we possibly can. As I mentioned, remote learning and telehealth delivery revolves around and is dependent on strong and flexible student schedules. So, you know, when a teacher has a student in their classroom day to day, they can do so much more on the fly in terms of adjusting schedules and moving things around in order to meet the classes and the students' needs. But when students are at home and parents are responsible for providing the support related to the daily schedule in collaboration with teachers and other providers, the remote learning and the telehealth delivery truly depends upon a very solid schedule. So I'm going to talk some more about that. I think of the schedule, especially at times like this, when children are at home, as the skeleton of a strong learning body. The schedule is the essential framework needed in order to deliver a high quality of instruction, services, and learning in a virtual environment. And the schedule is the easiest way for teachers and parents to work together collaboratively. If a parent knows when learning will take place during the course of a day and during the course of the week, they can work so much better to provide their student to the teacher and make them available for learning. I think a lot of teachers are getting hung up on having a platform like Zoom in order to do telehealth and remote learning, but remote learning can be done using any kind of technology platform. I've seen teachers and parents texting with each other about schedules and about what their students should be learning. They use Facebook, they use so many other different platforms, so it doesn't have to be Zoom. This is, I think, the biggest benefit that teachers and parents will see from their children and their students with a strong, consistent, and flexible schedule. They will see in their children increased calmness and a much increased level of cooperation. So when children know what to expect and have those expectations met, calmness and cooperation increase. Independence is a huge benefit of a strong, consistent, and flexible schedule. We all want our children and our students to be more independent, but if they know what to expect and how to get to that expectation, and that expectation is delivered over and over again through a schedule, daily and weekly schedule, then they will shoulder more of the responsibility for making sure that they are following their schedule. And so it will build a lot more independence. And then the second bullet point there is that schedules really work best if students have some choice in the schedule. Not in terms of when a certain activity is going to take place, but within the context of that activity, if they have a choice, they're going to buy in a lot more often. So for example, during an academic section of a schedule, if they know that they can choose between math and reading, and they choose reading, that empowers them to buy into the schedule, and they will gain more independence that way. Eliminating power struggles. If you're a parent and a teacher, or a teacher, you know about power struggles between adults and students. They happen all the time, and students and children are oftentimes very willful. They want to do their own thing. They have their own mind. And if everybody is on the same page and they know what the schedule is, and the schedule is followed and it's strong, consistent, and flexible, as I said, then you can eliminate a lot of the power struggles that oftentimes occur between adults and students or children. Additionally, it's kind of striking me right now that if a power struggle exists between adults, between adults in the home or between a parent and a teacher in terms of what should be happening and when it should be happening, having an agreed upon schedule day to day and week to week can eliminate a lot of those challenges in terms of communication. Oh, I love this one. So a strong, consistent, and flexible schedule allows for the opportunity to build in time that can be spent with family members besides parents, grandparents. They can be spent with grandparents, aunts, uncles, time that is going to be spent with telehealth providers like occupational therapists, speech and language pathologists. And again, if a child knows when a scheduled activity is supposed to take place, and they see week in and week out that the activity takes place during that time, their cooperation and calmness will improve. We also know on this one, I'll just say one more thing, that parents are busy, and oftentimes parents are working a lot, but grandparents can participate in helping deliver academics or other things within the context of the schedule. So a schedule provides opportunities for multiple people in the home to participate. All right. This is the last benefit I'm going to talk about today, but I think it's one of the most important ones. So in a time when we're oftentimes sheltering in place in our homes, it's very difficult for children and adults, for that matter, to be excited about things. But a schedule provides children with multiple opportunities to get excited about things and to look forward to events in the future. If a schedule is delivered, as I said, day to day, week to week, they will know over the long run that if they do a certain activity, that they will earn a certain reward, and that those rewards are something that they can really get excited about. Learning how to be excited about things and look forward to things is also a key component to cognitive development, and something we want to encourage in all of our children. Okay, I'm going to shift gears here. What should be in a schedule? So when we're building a schedule for our children and our students, we oftentimes forget about the basics, or we think that we shouldn't include the basics in a schedule because they're just going to happen no matter what. But a really good, strong schedule is going to include all the basics: meals, snacks, bathing, dressing, sleeping, and I think the last one is very important, learning how to complete chores, and spending time with parents and other caregivers to teach them how to do chores around the house. Academics. Of course, academics need to be in a schedule, especially for school-age children. The teacher and parent cooperation is going to maximize benefit in the academic component of a schedule. If teachers and parents are working together, and they know what to expect day in and day out and week to week, then the children and the students are going to learn as much as they would potentially with as though they were in a school setting. One of the things I want to really emphasize here, though, is that it's really important to avoid overscheduling academics. While crucially important to development and crucially important to school, overscheduling academics will frequently lead to burnout for everybody involved, students, teachers, and parents. The academic section of a schedule also includes specialty therapies like OT, speech, etc. Social interaction. I hear this from a lot of parents that their children can be very socially isolated when they're stuck at home, being protected from coronavirus and COVID-19. So scheduling social interaction into a daily routine and weekly routine is really, really important. We all know how important social interaction is to the development of language, behavior, and all kinds of other cognitive skills. So making sure to schedule in some social interaction time with parents and other family members is very, very important, or siblings. With parents busy working, oftentimes children will spend way too much time alone in front of screens or playing alone with toys. So having there be a schedule, scheduled social interaction is very, very important. Having it be an interactive game, playing cards or some other kind of game, or an activity time like making some kind of art. And I put in parentheses there, chores can be turned into games with kids. If everybody is involved in doing a chore, you can have competitions to see how quickly people can complete certain chores, or you can sing songs while doing chores. There's so many different things that can be done within the context of social interaction. And don't forget, family meal time counts as social time. Let's not forget exercise. Exercise is so important to the development of a well-formed physical being. Also so important to cognitive and emotional development. In a schedule, a daily schedule, exercise can be blocked out for 15 to 30 minutes at a time. For example, a fun activity would be to have a dance party. You could say, all right, every Friday at 2:45, when we're all done with our activities, we're going to turn on some music and we're going to dance around our house or our apartment. And I just think kids love being able to look forward to fun activities like this with family members. If you have a child or a student that needs more sensory breaks, then building in exercise at the end of each activity completion for 1 to 5 minutes is also really important. That could just be 1 minute of jumping jacks or 5 minutes of jumping on a trampoline or whatever. But it's really, really important to build exercise into a daily schedule. And then finally, let's not forget about playtime. A lot of parents and a lot of teachers will overemphasize academics and underemphasize playtime in a daily schedule. And I think if you've been watching Dr. Francis de Molanta's presentations on smart play over the course of the past couple of weeks, you're starting to see that engaging in play activities is just as important to the development of cognitive, emotional, social, and language skills as any other activity a child could be engaged in. So as I said, the power of play cannot be underestimated. And in case you need more convincing, I included a couple of quotes. One from Jerome Singer, who's a very famous professor from Yale University who talked about the power of play. And he says that the activities that are the easiest, cheapest, and most fun to do, such as singing, playing games, reading, storytelling, and just talking and listening, are also the best for child development. And then I don't know if you have Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the Philippines, but Fred Rogers is a famous, or was a famous child development person who had his own TV show. And he said that play is often talked about as if it were a relief from work. But for children, play is serious, serious learning. So I think that building a lot of play into a child's daily and weekly schedule is crucially important to their development. Okay, we're going to shift gears again a little bit here. And I worked up a sample daily schedule for children between ages 7 and 9. This can be adjusted based on how old the child is. And we can talk a little bit more about that next week if you join us for our follow-up webinar. But let's just kind of go through this. These schedules can be, I developed here a fairly robust schedule, but this schedule can be broken down into even smaller time frames if that's what you and your children and or students need. So for example, you take that first block from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, wake up, get dressed, eat breakfast. If your child needs a more kind of specific schedule, you could say from 7 o'clock to 7:15, wake up, 7:15 to 7:30, get dressed, 7:30 to 8 o'clock, eat breakfast. They may even, your child or your student may even need more breaking down within the context of each of those smaller time frames. If they need a step-by-step guide on how to get dressed, then that can be an opportunity to present them with that get dressed guide. If they need a step-by-step guide on how to eat breakfast, you can present them with a smaller, more specific eat breakfast guide in terms of step-by-step guidelines for how to accomplish those tasks. But I think it's important to just build in a routine that works for you and works for your family in collaboration with your teachers and your other providers. So I think morning chores are key. Children oftentimes need something to kind of get them going in the morning. And I think morning chores like cleaning up your room or making your bed, helping with dishes, sweeping is a good way to kind of get the motor running. Also, you can build in a little bit of morning exercise before you spend time checking in with your teacher to see what the assignments are for the day. I built in an hour-long morning school activity block here, and this again would be an opportunity for children to make a choice. If the teacher gives you a reading assignment, a writing assignment, and a math assignment that need to be completed by the end of the day during this morning check-in, then you could go to your child when you're running them through the schedule, or the teacher can do this and say, okay, I'm gonna let all the children choose which activity that they wanna do. Do they wanna do the reading first? Do they wanna do the math first? Or do they wanna do the writing first? That way they feel empowered and they are more likely to buy into the schedule. Got to build in a little snack time during the middle of the morning, maybe a little bit of free play time just to kind of unwind after the first morning academic assignment. But then right after that, just jumping right back into some more academics, I think is really important. For my schedule that I built here, I have most of my academics happening in the morning when children seem to have more energy and have better attention. But I just want to emphasize that you as parents and teachers really need to work collaboratively to find out what works for you. At noon, you're going to do a little quick exercise or sensory break. That's an important thing to do right after your second academic section. And then have lunch. If you can have lunch as a family, then that's just excellent social time, socialization time. And then after lunch, building in a social game or activity with parent. That's also a good time block to do OT, occupational therapy, or speech service. I like to have something social and something highly preferred right after lunch so that the child or the student re-engages with their schedule a lot easier. If you try and jump right back into academics after lunch, you may not have as much success because they might be tired. But it's a highly preferred game or activity with a parent or someone that they really like, then they're more likely to get right back into their schedule. As we move into the afternoon, we're going to have less academics, and we're going to have more opportunities to do playtime, focused playtime, like Dr. DiMolanta's Smart Play. You can spend some time doing some sports or music, art, reading, some theater or some dance. Give them some time on their screens because I think that they need a reward at this point in time. If they've done all of their assignments thus far and stuck with the schedule, this is a nice reward for them. If you can do educational games and videos, that's best for them. Definitely take time for a snack. And then depending on your situation, if you can do it safely, I just think that it's so important to try and get children outside to get some fresh air. Obviously, they're going to go out with a mask, and you have to make a decision as a parent and as a teacher if that's something that children can do safely. But this is a good time to spend with a parent, socializing with family members or siblings. Getting towards the end of the day, we need a little bit of downtime and free play. Giving kids a little bit of downtime where they can do whatever they want to do and just play with whatever they want to play with is a really important thing for parents as well, because parents need downtime too. Parents, especially parents that are working all day, when they come home, they need some time to take care of themselves, make sure that they're healthy and they're well taken care of before we launch into things like evening chores, social dinner with family, helping to clean up, bathing, take a bath or a shower. That can also happen in the morning, depending on what works for you as a family, and then getting ready for bed. Ideally, you would spend time reading a book with your child, and then having them have a regularly scheduled sleep time is so important. I've got an earlier sleep time here. Again, you need to figure out what works for you and your family in terms of the schedule. But from a developmental standpoint, it's so important for children to get a nice long block of sleep every night. Okay, so I just want to reemphasize this. Parents and teachers oftentimes spend so much time worrying about their children and their students that they forget about their own needs. So I want everybody that's watching this to spend a little bit of time thinking about what are you doing to take care of yourself? And just want to reemphasize that overscheduling will always lead to burnout for everybody. So don't overschedule, make your schedule manageable, and make sure that in your schedule, daily schedule and weekly schedule, that you carve out some time for yourself to do some things that make you feel good and keep you healthy. If you join us next week, we're going to dig deeper into this idea of scheduling. We're going to talk about scheduling challenges, how to handle behavioral resistance to scheduling, how to handle access issues. Do your children or students need pictures or some other mode to communicate schedules? And we're going to talk about how to handle variability of parent schedules and how to maintain a certain degree of flexibility in a schedule while also ensuring that schedules are consistent and strong. And next week, we will also talk about some of the tools and techniques that we use to maximize the benefits of schedules. So using visual schedules, PECS is the Picture Exchange Communication System that some students need to exchange pictures to keep them on a firm schedule. Students oftentimes benefit from first then boards first you do this, then you do this, to build in a more robust schedule. Less verbal students sometimes benefit from yes/no boards where they can indicate whether or not they want something or they don't want something. Choice boards are really helpful for some students where they're given 2 or 3 choices during snack time or academic time or free play time to help them make decisions and keep them on their schedule and also empower them. And we'll also talk about reward systems. How do you build in reward systems over the course of the day and the week while you are trying to build a really, really strong schedule for your child and for your student. So that's it for this week. So happy that all of you that are out there joined me. I really hope that you come next week for the follow-up information. And I'd like to take a little bit of time right now to answer some of your questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eric. That was awesome. And we have a number of questions, so let's do it. Let's do a little live Q&A here with our participants. Participants, thank you so much for being here and for your questions. So we'll start at the top. How can we make sure that activities are always interesting and fun that gives kids a sense of reward and accomplishment? What's the best way to make it super fun?
Oh, fun, huh? In my experience, the more enthusiastic parents and teachers are about an activity, the more likely it is that children and students are going to view an activity as fun. I think in one of my slides, I mentioned that chores can be turned into a game, right? So, a chore, if you just look at it as a chore, like, okay, you have to do something, then it's not going to be as fun. But if the teacher's like, we're going to play the sweeping game, or if a parent says, we're going to play the game of setting the dinner table, and we're going to sing a little song while we set the dinner table, and we're going to dance around while we set the dinner table, then children are going to view those activities as more fun and therefore will be a lot more engaged.
Excellent. Okay, next question, which I think is a good one. Given that we're really new in this distance and e-learning world, how can we not overschedule the academics and essentially phase them in is what the question is asking. Since kids are just getting used to this, what's the best way to kind of ease them into this e-learning and, strike that balance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's important that children, especially, actually all children across all age levels, are not being asked to spend too much time in front of computers. I think kids need to move around, they need engagement, they need activity, and being part of a virtual classroom doesn't always provide that opportunity to engage and to be active. And so I think the best thing that teachers and parents can do as they're collaborating on these schedules is they can break the academic sections down into smaller chunks so that the time that students are being asked to spend in a virtual classroom or the time that students are being asked to engage in an academic activity are shorter and are bracketed by other activities. And you saw in my schedule, I tried to bracket academic activities with exercise, with fun activities. And I think that if children know that they're going to kind of over the course of their day go from a more highly preferred activity to an activity that maybe is harder for them, like a reading or a math activity, but that if they successfully do it and it's a relatively short amount of time, that they get some kind of a reward at the end, some kind of game or exercise or more preferred activity, then you're going to see those skills develop a lot more rapidly over time.
Nice. And I think this next question kind of, there was something that you said in your answer to the previous question that triggered this next question, which is, what if the child really isn't interested in physical games and is much more interested in screen time and iPad? How do I engage with that child? What do I do to, get that physicality in there?
Yeah. And again, when you're building a new schedule for your child, oftentimes you're starting at a place where, especially when we've all been at home for all of these past months, where maybe they've been spending hours and hours in front of a screen or playing a video game. And so I think kind of referring back to that previous question, as we start to think about phasing a schedule in, we're going to talk more about this next week, but I think that one of the things to keep in mind is that this isn't going to happen overnight. That we really need to be kind of gentle with ourselves and gentle with our kids as we're trying to change their behavior patterns and move them into a more kind of a well-balanced schedule that includes exercise and all of these other activities.
Great. How about thinking of sort of, you mentioned in your talk that, and also in a previous answer, that it's good to kind of put in a preferred activity that maybe brackets a non-preferred activity, right? But what about making deals with a child? So what's your take on making deals with a child? Almost all the time is the question, the way the question is phased. Like in exchange for having 2 hours of games online, he needs to attend class.
Mm-hmm. I mean, making deals with people, I think, is one of the essential components to being well socialized. The better we are at making deals with other people and teaching our children how to make deals and then how to follow through on those deals, the more successful they will be when they become adults. So I think the important thing is to not give in too much to what the kids want. If you're in a situation where you're saying, okay, do this 15-minute academic activity, and then you get to be playing your video game for 2 hours, that's not well balanced enough. But if you are in a situation where over the course of the day, you're saying, all right, I'm keeping track of how well you're doing these other activities. And if you continue to really do well with all these activities, then you're going to get a reward of being able to play your video game in the afternoon. Did that answer the question? Was that?
I think so. I think it was an
Okay.
excellent answer. Absolutely. Another question that I think, is important to think about is the idea that adults and caregivers are really involved with livelihood activities, and many children are left kind of alone to fend for themselves. And what can, teachers and other, people outside of the parental kind of family unit, what can they do to help with that for children who are, on their own most of the time?
Yeah. Again, this is where a schedule, depending on, your child's level of ability and how able they are to kind of follow a schedule on their own. This is where schedules can be incredibly helpful to teachers and parents. If you have a visual schedule of the day and before you go to work, you review that with your child and then maybe send them a text to prompt them from time to time to transition, or if you can't do that, have some other way. Maybe there's another grandparent or some other adult that's around that can track what's going on with a child, or a teacher to prompt them to move to another activity. If they have a good schedule and they know what their schedule is, and you review the schedule with them in the morning and then follow up with them again when you get home in the evening to review how well they did at following their schedule, then that's, again, that can help them become so much more independent and really develop those skills that'll serve them well over the course of their lives.
Nice. So we have many more questions, but I think we have time for maybe 2 or 3 more. So I will hand pick them here. And I think we should pay attention to those parents, since you put in such a nice slide at the end about self-care. So what is your overall advice for parents who are overloaded, and how can we get those self-care moments into the schedule?
Yeah. Gosh, I know how difficult that is for parents. When we're working all day, and then when we come home and our responsibilities are cooking or, taking care of our kids, or, doing all the other things that need to be done around the house, oftentimes we forget about ourselves, or we don't have time for ourselves. I find that one of the best strategies in a situation like this, and I know this doesn't apply to everybody because everybody's families and family makeup is different, but I think a lot of times certain parents take on the majority of responsibility in a house for delivering schedules or taking care of certain things. But I think that's another advantage of a schedule, is that if another family member, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle wants to help out every day or over the course of the week, if they know specifically what time they need to help out and specifically what they need to do within the context of that time, then their assistance with the child can do wonders for providing additional time for overburdened and overworked parents and caregivers to spend some time getting their own exercise or taking care of themselves in some other way.
Great. Okay, so one comment that I will make to the group is I see questions about sample schedules for the younger cohort and sample schedules for the older cohort. So I think next week with the follow-up information, you might be able to kind of use that information to help grade those schedules, both down for younger kids and up for older kids. But we can consider also putting together some samples for younger and older. And then, unless you'd like to add something to that, Eric.
Can I just speak to that really, really quickly? I think, looking not just at age, but also looking at ability, right? I think we really need to look at our children and see what they're capable of handling. Some of our kids are going to be able to handle longer blocks of learning, right? Like some of our teenagers can maybe sit down and do work for a much longer period of time. But some of our teenagers might, based on certain challenges that they face, may not be able to do more than 10 or 15 minutes of an activity before they need to transition to something else. And so the same thing goes for younger kids. Many of our younger kids need things in smaller chunks. They need more kind of rapid transitions a lot of times. And so just to look at age and ability and attention span, and when you're kind of experimenting with building a schedule, to spend a lot of time, as I said, experimenting. What you develop, it doesn't need to be set in stone. If you try a schedule and it doesn't really work out, don't be afraid to tinker with it and find something else that works better.
Fantastic. Eric, I think we have covered the content of most of the questions. And if your question specifically wasn't answered live, we will take care to answer them and provide them as a write-up post this presentation. But I think that the content of the remaining questions is very similar to what you've already answered. So thank you for that. That was excellent. Thank you everyone for joining, and I will turn it back over to Lisa for some closing remarks.
Yeah, I just want to thank Eric and Lonnie for joining us this evening. And Eric, What an amazing presentation. And we look forward to next week to hearing more about scheduling and some of the different modules that we can use to help our children with scheduling. So with that, thank you everyone for joining. And those of you who did join online or on Facebook, just do know that those of you who are interested in your certificates, they will be coming out. We send them normally within 3 to 5 business days after the presentation, and also a link to the recording of this that will be posted on YouTube. So thanks everyone, and we'll talk next week.